Welcome to your first step in your transformation process to a happier, healthier, and more sane life with diabetes. The process is called blood sugar in check because most of us, that's what we think about all the time, right? We think about blood sugar when we wake up, before breakfast, during breakfast, after breakfast, before lunch, during lunch, after lunch, around dinner, before exercise, after exercise, in business meetings, at work, any other social setting. Before we go to bed, and sometimes we even worry about what happens to our blood sugar while we're sleeping. So blood sugar in check is really a reminder that blood sugar is important, but you can also have a happy, a healthy, and a very sane life with diabetes. When I say sane life, it means yes, there are realities of diabetes that we need to work on. And today is the first step in that process. And so we will get some sanity and check where we are, or begin to check where we are, and then develop that process from here. So here's what usually happens, right? People that have diabetes, you may be at that point right now. I'm sure you have been at that point, and what in one stage is you've got diagnosed, and first of course you're shocked, you may be depressed, but then after a while you get into action mode and you're like, okay, I need to do something about it. And you may even gotten determined and say, you know what, I need to work on my diet, I need to check my blood sugar all the time. I would change the way I exercise and move. And I would stop drinking Coke or other soda or juice or whatever, any of all those plans. You may even bought like a journal where you put in all your blood sugar results, or you journal what you've eaten in terms of carbs and how much exercise you've done. Some people, they use apps for that. Some like to use paper. But after that initial, what we call honeymoon, is over, we seem to have a tendency to go back to old habits. And very often that is because we're just frustrated, right? So I have had diabetes for over 40 years, and I know that, at times, no matter how much I manage and how much I'm focused on my blood sugar, it's just not getting down. It stays up, or it spikes, like a roller coaster up and down. And no matter what I do, nothing that I can do helps it to get better. And during those times, it's very easy to get downhearted and give up. And then say, why worry? Why bother? Why do all of that? And then slip back into behavior and eating habits that maybe before our diet has served us well, but no longer does so. And you know that from probably New Year's resolutions, right? It's not just a problem that we have as diabetics because we have an illness. It's human. So New Year's resolution, typically a good reset point for a lot of people, and making plans for the year, right? Saying, I need to get a better job, I need to lose weight, I need to become more fit, whatever it is. So we set those plans at the beginning of the year. And then what happens after 3 weeks, right? So I see that at the gym. When I go to the gym, the first week, the first 2 weeks at the gym are typically packed, right? Because everybody goes in there and really determined to make a change. And 3 weeks later, it has already thinned out. And typically, by the end of February, we're back to normal. And that happens almost every year. Because knowing what changes we want to make, that is easy. Everybody can come up with a plan how to change your life. Sticking with it is another totally different thing, right? And the reason here is not because you don't have the willpower, or you cannot do it, or life pulls you in other directions. What actually happens is your brain actively works against you when you set new plans. Let me explain that to you. So, we know from studies that about 6 million years ago, when our ancestor tree divided into chimps and humans, that's when the human body started to divert energy, or the responsibility for survival rather, from the muscle to the brain. So your brain is actually made for survival, not for being successful. When you think about it, we are on this planet. We are not the fastest species on this planet. We are not the strongest either, yet we dominate the planet. Why is that, right? So, and it is because our brain has taken over the responsibility for survival. So, and what that meant for us, even as recently as a few thousand years ago, that's 10,000 years ago, start there, right, is in order for us to survive, given the fact that we are not the strongest and not the fastest species on this world. As an illustrative example, like even an untrained chimp will beat any professional NBA basketball player in weightlifting, right? So why is that? Well, because again, their responsibility for survival is in the muscle. With us human beings, it's in the brain. And 10,000 years ago, when you and I would have lived somewhere in the wild, change meant always something negative, right? So our brain was really focused on changes that could potentially harm us. So it was important for us 10,000 years ago that we see the lioness behind the bush, because if we do not detect her early enough, she's going to eat us. Or we needed to see the different shapes of clouds and be able to interpret them to understand that like bad weather, severe weather is coming in and we need to find shelter. Otherwise, we would have been hit by hail or torrential rain or whatever. We also needed to understand, see patterns, like understand that bitter fruits are typically also poisonous, right? So, and stay away from them. So that's what the brain has developed in over 1 million of years. And, the brain does not change that fast, right? Today, we have a totally, nobody needs to worry about the lioness behind the bush anymore. And most of us are relatively sheltered from a lot of danger. At least here in the first world, and we realized that in other countries, the world, it's a different story. But from where we sit, if you have the ability to watch this training course right now, then chances are pretty good that you are relatively safe and do not have to worry about too many dangers, unlike we did like 10,000 years ago. And then the brain has done a lot of other things, right? So it, for example, it helps us to survive by releasing hormones such as endorphins, right? That make the pain go away. And you know that when you run and then after a while, you feel all your muscles hurt, you can't do anymore and go anymore. And then eventually, the endorphins kick in. And they make the pain go away so that you can go faster. Again, it's a survival mechanism, right? As human beings, we need to walk away from danger, walk away from seasons, and walk away to find food and water and so on. So these endorphins helped us to mask that pain while we were doing that, while we were in survival mode. And when you're an athlete and you're a runner, what happens when you go back? The moment you're back at home, and after an hour, you feel like, yeah, great. You feel like so all energized. And an hour later, you can hardly move because you feel every single muscle ache or bone ache in your body because those endorphins have gone away. So the brain does that in order for you to be able to survive, right? Our bodies also evolved like its own version of dopamine. that is different from the ones that we find in chimpanzees, for example, right? And endorphin keeps us motivated and focused on getting food, right? If you want to find food and you need to walk and walk and walk and walk, so you need to have some kind of motivation to keep on going. Another hormone that the brain releases is cortisol. That makes us alert to danger, right? Adrenaline opens like the lungs, airways, right, to help you to increase the blood flow and bring more oxygens in our blood, and so that our muscles have more energy, so that we can either fight, flight, or freeze ourselves out of a dangerous situation. So that is what the brain does, and it is so amazing that the human body can go into survival mode and endure extreme temperatures for weeks without food. And as long as you drink water, you can live up to 8 weeks without food. That's amazing. There's an extreme athlete called Wim Hof. He's Dutch, which I follow, and I like him a lot. And people also know him as the Iceman. And he has shown, and he has like scientifically verified that with doctors measuring his temperature and his blood and blood pressure and the hormone in his body and all of that, right? And actually checking his autonomous nervous system, how he does that. But he has actually proved that you can change your body or condition your body through breathing alone. That he climbed Mount Everest in just his shorts and some shoes. I mean, not even the oxygen mask, but not even a t-shirt, right? And he ran like a full marathon through a desert without water. That's what the brain can do. That's how the brain manages your body, right? So we are made for endurance and survival, right? And we can strengthen that ability by conditioning our bodies and minds. In fact, you do that all of the time, right? Maybe you don't climb Mount Everest in your t-shirt, right, and shorts, but your ability to ensure situations and circumstances show every day. That, for example, is the reason why people stay in lousy jobs or crappy relationships much longer than they should. And I know that you have too, at least at one point in your life. So that's when the survival mechanism works against you. So we are made to endure, not change. So if you want to change and you fail and you didn't go through with it, or you haven't gone through in the past, it's not because you as a person are not qualified enough, are not don't have enough willpower, don't have the talent or whatever. It's nothing to do with that, right? It is because your brain will actively fight you when you want to make changes.